As a content of this debate, we believe that carbon tax should be implemented. Contention 1, wealth gap. A carbon tax increases the gap between the rich and the poor. According to Clifton Parker reporting on Stanford study, the heaviest burden for climate change regulation cost falls on people, especially lower income groups, and not corporations. According to new Stanford research, for the poor, basic necessities take up a bigger chunk of the budget than for the rich. Households in the lowest income group pay more than twice what households in the highest 10% pay. This is a huge deal. The wider the wealth gap, the more it harms the economy and threatens democracy. According to Michael Hiltzik, writing for the LA Times, rising economic inequalities in the United States is hampering economic growth and punching holes in the social fabric. Inequality may also spur political instability. The affluent exercise disproportionate influence on the political process. Some income inequality is necessary, but at extreme levels, income inequality can harm sustained economic growth. The U.S. is approaching that threshold. Contention 2, job loss. A tax on carbon would prevent businesses from investing and expanding as a result of higher energy costs. The result is a loss of jobs. According to David Putz, writing for the Heritage Foundation, since an overwhelming majority of America's energy needs are met by carbon-emitting fossil fuels, regulations directly raise the cost of electricity, gasoline, and home heating oil. Businesses would likely pass this cost on to consumers. If a company had to absorb the cost, high energy costs would squeeze profit margins and prevent business from investing and expanding. The result is higher energy costs, and lower income and fewer jobs. This is a huge deal. Unemployment creates a vicious cycle that brings down the economy. According to Stephen Simpson, writing for Investopedia, unemployment leads to high payments from state and federal governments for unemployment benefits, food assistance, and Medicaid. Those governments are no longer collecting the same levels of income tax as before, forcing the governments to borrow money. The production of those workers leaves the economy, which reduces the GDP. Contention 3, alternatives. We don't need the carbon tax because there are better options. A cap and trade system would solve the problem much better than a carbon tax. According to Fred Krupp, writing for Yale Environment 360, advantage of an emission cap is clear. A cap puts a legal limit on pollution. A tax does not. A cap with strong emissions reduction targets can we achieve the environmental goal. When we create a market that rewards emissions reductions, we put the vast know-how, manufacturing base, and investment capital of the private sector to work. Cap and trade gives us an environmental guarantee that you can't get with the tax.
As a pro side, we strongly believe that we should enforce a carbon tax for these reasons. Contention 1, global warming. First, global warming is already happening, and it is caused by humans. Overwhelming scientific consensus supports this. According to a meta-analysis by scientist James Powell reviewed more than 24,000 scientific articles on climate change published between 2013 and 2014. Powell identified 69,406 authors, and only 4 rejected climate change as being caused by human emissions. That's 1 in every 17,352 scientists. I found only 0.006% who reject it. Scientists are virtually unanimous. Anthropogenic global warming is true. Second, a carbon tax can help. It is the best way to cut CO2 emissions and prevent the worst effects of global warming: droughts, floods, and superstorms. According to Laura Tyson, a professor at Berkeley's Business School, a carbon tax is the most effective way to discourage carbon consumption and lower the risk of catastrophic climate changes. In May, carbon dioxide reached nearly 400 parts per million. UN negotiators have set a limit of 450 parts per million to prevent irreversible changes. The world will cross this limit in a matter of decades. Evidence of climate change is everywhere: melting Arctic ice and extreme weather events including record droughts, heat waves, epic floods, and superstorms. A carbon tax is the most effective and simplest way to reduce carbon emissions. Carbon emissions have an unprecedented societal cost. A tax on carbon would reflect these costs and discourage carbon emissions. Producers and consumers would adjust their behavior. Any tax on carbon would be an important step in the right direction. Contention 2. Oil dependence. If the U.S. adopts a carbon tax, it will help expedite our transition away from fossil fuels. We must act immediately, recently argued Elon Musk. Removing hidden subsidies and imposing a fee on carbon will hasten the switch from fossil fuels to greener energy sources. The goal should be to move away from fossil fuels as quickly as possible, with society instead using sustainable energy sources that will be good for 1 billion years. How do we accelerate this transition away from fossil fuels to the sustainable era? We need to have a carbon tax. There needs to be a clear message from the government in this regard, because the fundamental problem is the rules today incent people to create carbon. This is madness. This is important. U.S. oil dependence fosters unstable governments often hostile to the U.S., reports Daniel Weiss and Rebecca Lefton of the Center for American Progress. The United States imported 4 million barrels of oil a day from dangerous or unstable countries. As a major contributor to the global demand for oil, the United States is paying to finance and sustain unfriendly regimes. Without reducing our dependence on oil, we will be forced to increasingly look to more antagonist and volatile countries that pose direct threats on our national security. Now moving on to my third contention. Contention 3, green economy. A carbon tax would help the U.S. move towards a green economy by boosting economic growth while also benefiting the environment. According to Richard Capitan, writing for the Center for American Progress, a carbon tax will be paid with additional investments in clean energy. There's also a great need to repair transportation and water infrastructure. Some revenues from the carbon tax could be directed toward these sectors. The investments benefit the economy. Infrastructure investments would put people to work. Even after protecting low-income consumers and investing in infrastructure, billions of dollars could be left over to help address our nation's debt. Climate change, economic growth, and fiscal responsibility may not appear to be intimately linked. They all have different causes. However, a price on carbon can make a significant contribution to solving each one of these challenges. For all of those reasons, I strongly urge a pro ballot.
Can I have the first question?
Okay.
Can I have the first?
Yeah.
So, for your global warming contention, you say James Powell collected data from 2013, 2014, but isn't that too narrow to get data from? Because global warming changes a little every year.
There still was a significant his data analysis study was about the scientists, not about global warming. It was about how many scientists think global warming is true. Right. So your alternative why is the alternative? Why is cap and trade better if the government can set the cap too high or low and mess it up completely?
Because it doesn't create global warming.
What?
It helps reduce global warming.
So does the carbon tax.
No, but people aren't gonna actually buy.
Can I ask another question? Yeah. Why is job loss such a big deal? If one, the carbon tax will put people to work by building infrastructure, and two, people that got fired from working for oil rigs for that work making oil rigs and stuff, they're trained in stuff and they can easily get a job elsewhere. So how many jobs would be being lost?
A lot. And so let's say you're the CEO of this fossil fuel company, and then you lose your job because no one's buying your oil. Then you're losing a lot of money, and you have to start off from the way bottom.
Okay.
So
a lot. So a lot. Can I assume that a lot is 10 or a lot is? What is a lot? What is your? Because I'm sure that the
pretty much all the people
global warming. Your cap and trade will fail, and carbon tax is the only way to stop global warming. Global warming is so severe it can swamp states, like Florida. So, I forget losing jobs. People can lose their lives, and a couple of jobs don't really come into effect. So, job loss really doesn't is really no big deal.
Can I have the question now?
Yeah.
So, for your oil dependence, Elon Musk said something about oil dependence, and Elon Musk is the founder of Tesla. Isn't that a little biased?
Yeah, but he also works for SpaceX, and so that wouldn't really help.
But that's not my point. He works for electric cars, and then his electric cars don't use like oils, and then he's trying to like bias because he has like electric cars that doesn't use oil.
Again, that would help Tesla, but that wouldn't help his other.
Response to global warming. 1. It doesn't stop warming. Our carbon tax just won't reduce CO2 emissions that much. Brad Plummer, writing for the Washington Post, said, a carbon tax might not make a significant dent in U.S. global warming emissions. Modern economy are so heavily dependent on fossil fuels that there's only so much we can reasonably cut back. Alternatives are readily available yet. Without carbon tax, emissions do start declining. The United States wouldn't get 80% cut by 2050. 2. Impact is far away. Global warming won't have large effects for decades. We can develop many other solutions before then. 3. Carbon tax won't stop fossil fuel usage. A small tax is not enough to cancel problem. 4. Global warming might not be caused by humans. Animals can be problems. They can release gases such as methane. 5. Cap and trade is a better way to limit amount of carbon tax because it limits the amount of carbon used. In response to oil dependence. Their oil dependence argument is flawed. 1. It doesn't solve the problem. Consumers will still use fossil fuels, argues Aanan of Greenwire. When it comes to oil products, people's behavior is fairly fixed, especially over the short term. People must drive to get to work. Oil is used for jet fuel, diesel for trucks, and a host of manufactured products. A $20 price for carbon will result in about a 20 cent per gallon increase in gasoline pump prices. It's like going to drive people out of cars. Let's not kid ourselves. It will have some marginal effect. 2. Oil sales are inevitable. Even if the U.S. stops buying oil from dictators, other countries will still continue to buy. They'll sell their oil one way or another, so it doesn't matter what the U.S. does. 3. Oil is better. It is more efficient for energy and lasts longer than electricity. In response to green economy. The green economy argument is wrong. More jobs are lost than gained. Renewable energy is too expensive, according to Virgin Lumber, writing for Slate. Job creation cannot be defended as another benefit of well-meaning green policies. The number of jobs that these policies create is likely to be offset, or worse, by the number of jobs that they destroy. Alternative energy sources such as solar and wind create significantly more expensive fuel and electricity. Increasing the cost of electricity will hurt productivity, reduce overall employment, increase and cut the amount of disposable income that people will have. Green energy technologies these are still very inefficient and expensive compared to fossil fuels. 2. Tax revenue will be wasted. The pro assumes the government will spend the money perfectly, but political battles guarantee that some of the money goes to waste. It will not help fix our debt. 3. It won't stop carbon emissions. People won't get a new car because carbon is slightly more expensive. 4. We can transition to green economy without a carbon tax. I'm done.
All right. Okay, as a pro team, we believe in a carbon tax. 1. Carbon taxes don't hurt the poor. There will be exemptions for low-income people, according to Richard Carpenter, writing for the Center of American Progress. The CBO explored 7 different options for reducing the regressivity of a carbon tax. An income tax rebate or payroll tax rebate can be very effective in addressing these challenges. These rebates reach a very broad number of people and can be targeted to specific income levels. The overall reform package is progressive. 2. Global warming makes the wealth gap even worse. Natural disasters and resource scarcity hurts poor people more since they don't have as many resources to escape stagnate or recover. We need to stop global warming first if we ever want to close the wealth gap. 3. Actually, the wealth gap is a necessity for a flourishing economy and society. According to Jim Lurio, the managing director for TGAM Institutional Services, writing for CNBC News, wealth inequality is not a bad thing. Wealth inequality is a healthy and necessary component of a growing economy. We need wealth inequality to fuel the creative ambition that leads people to seek a better financial future. In response to their job loss argument, 1. A carbon tax would actually lead to more jobs and overall economic growth, according to Rick McGay, writing for CNN. If the U.S. implements even a modest carbon tax, we could generate $170 billion by 2030 to create jobs and build bridges, roads, and schools, reduce budget deficits, and cut taxes to spur private investment. Many fossil fuel job losses have already taken place. Carbon taxes are not the real threat to coal miners. Greedy energy companies are. 2. We need to create sustainable economic growth. Jobs in the fossil fuel industry that destroy the environment are not good jobs. A carbon tax helps create a green economy where the economy can grow without environmental damage. 3. Not a big impact. People that get fired have an education and they're able to get another job. Now to respond to their alternatives contention. 1. Carbon tax is better. It has many advantages over cap and trade. According to Charles Kamenoff, writing for Yale Environment 360, only a carbon tax can quickly drive the transition from fossil fuels to renewable and efficient energy. It is far superior to cap and trade. Price certainty. The clear price signals from a carbon tax stand in stark contrast to a price volatility epidemic to cap and trade. Simplicity and immediacy. British Columbia implemented a carbon tax in 5 months. North America's cap and trade system took 5 years of negotiation. 2. No benefit. Cap and trade causes all the same problems of a carbon tax, so there's no way it could be better. It's still going to harm the fossil fuel industry, so it's better to go with a carbon tax since it solves global warming better. Europe's cap and trade system improves. 3. Cap and trade fails. The government could set the cap too high or too low, and people can't find the right price for permits. For these reasons, we urge you to vote for the pro team. All right, you may ask the first question.
Okay, so isn't your oil dependence contention kind of biased because Elon Musk is a CEO of Tesla?
All right, first of all, your partner already asked that, and my partner answered that. But basically, Elon Musk has another company called SpaceX, and SpaceX sends things into space. So even if he was supporting carbon tax, it wouldn't help his other company.
Okay, so do you have a question?
Yes. So, so you say that the wealth gap brings down the economy. How?
Wealth gap?
Yeah.
Because there's a gap between the rich and the poor. So like the poor has nothing to spend on, so they will so the economy doesn't grow.
Okay.
Okay, so can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
So, the articles that Powell read was not peer-reviewed, and he also states he just read the title. So how do you know if what they are saying are not a bunch of junk mates someone made?
Well, your partner kind of asked about the Powell, the credibility of Powell. Well, she was just looking for she was just looking for the scientists, how many scientists there were who agreed to global warming.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Okay. Yeah.
Sure. You say that cap and trade is better than carbon tax, but how? How is it better than
cap
carbon
and trade?
tax?
Because it actually limits the amount of carbon being used, so it helps the environment.
But okay, so we had evidence that it took 5 years for it to be put into place, while carbon tax took 5 months. So doesn't it take a really long time to be put into place?
So you said global warming also takes a long time to have an effect. So cap and trade will
you said it has a long time to take.
Okay, yeah, we said it. So.
But you're not answering my question. I said that no. I said that how is cap and trade good if it takes such a long time? It took 5 years in comparison to carbon tax.
It limits the amount of carbon being used. to help the environment more than carbon tax, because carbon tax doesn't actually limit the amount of carbon being used. It just places a tax on it.
Well, but if there is a tax on it, then aren't people going to use less of it?
Okay, they're not just gonna
Think
stop
about it.
using carbon.
Well, no,
because it's slightly more expensive.
In cap and trade, people could still use as much carbon as they want and just pay the fine.
Okay. As you said, people don't want to pay like a fine is much more larger than a tax.
My point of responding to my first convention wealth gap by saying it doesn't hurt the poor, but if just small tax on oil adds up, it can be like really big later. And my opponent said that global warming makes the wealth gap even worse, but impact is impact is really far away, so we shouldn't care about that stuff right now. And then my opponent said wealth gap is needed for economic growth, but it's not needed because poor people can't buy anything, and it's not benefiting the economy. My opponent responded to my second condition job loss by saying it leads to more jobs lost. It leads to more jobs and better economy, but like what I said during the crossfire, if you're the CEO of this fossil fuel company and you lose your job, you have to start from the way bottom of the other company, which means you make less money, and that doesn't benefit the economy. My opponent said that it's not a big impact, but it is because losing job is a really big deal, because let's say if you lose a job, you wouldn't be like really happy and you'll be like really sad. My opponent responded to my alternatives contention by carbon tax is better, but apparently you guys said that carbon tax makes the global warming go carbon tax makes the global warming go up, and you guys said that global warming makes the wealth gap bigger. So you guys basically contradict yourself. My opponent said that there's no benefit, but if carbon tax cap and trade limits the amount of carbon being used, and it helps the environment. And then my opponent said cap and trade will fail, but like what I just said, it limits the carbon being used and it helps the environment, so it's not gonna fail.
As a pro side, we strongly believe that our carbon tax will help stop global warming. In response to our global warming contention, they said that carbon tax won't stop global warming, but it actually will. People will stop buying fossil fuels and transfer to renewable energy, because and they also said the impact is far away, but the impact is happening right now. And as we said in our Laura Tyson evidence and our global warming contention, we said that there's already been record droughts, melting Arctic ice, and this is huge because it can swamp states, and it can swamp states like Florida and stuff in California, and also people will lose lives. Forget losing jobs, people will lose lives. They also said that it won't stop fossil fuel usage, but it will reduce it, and it will be an important step in the right direction. And they also said that animals emit or something, and they might emit methane, but not as much as companies, because when an animal emits methane, it emits a very small amount. Well, companies, they emit a lot more than animals. In response to our oil dependence contention, they said that the carbon tax won't stop the problem, but it's actually a really important step in the right direction. As I said before, people will stop buying fossil fuels, so on and so forth. And also, they said oil sales are inevitable, but it will reduce oil sales. And they also said oil is more efficient. But would you rather have more efficient fossil fuels, or where it hurts the economy and the environment, or would you rather have a better economy, a better environment, and when your TV is slower? So, in response to our green economy contention, they said more jobs are lost. But that's not true. Infrastructure investments will put people to work. Tax revenue will be used. Yeah, I didn't.
Can we have the first question?
Sure.
So the carbon tax makes the global warming go up, and you guys said that global warming makes the wealth gap even worse. So
What? When did we say that?
No, we said that.
Yeah,
Global
guys-
warming makes the wealth gap even worse.
yeah, so
And
like
the carbon tax will solve global warming better than cap and trade, so thank you. Here we
Wait,
have
how
some-
how does carbon tax solve it better than the cap and trade?
Okay, my partner already said this in his response speech.
Say it again.
Carbon tax and cap and trade have the same problems, but carbon tax solves it better in many ways. For example, it helps the economy, which you don't do. It's not
Wait,
and then
can I ask?
and it moves us farther away from oil dependence. So can we move
What
on?
are the problems that cap and trade and carbon tax share?
Well, okay, so
There are plenty. For example, harming fossil fuel industries.
Okay, so but you said,
also people could get around it, like.
so you said that carbon tax benefits environment more, like, but doesn't cap and trade do that better?
As I said before, as he said before, people can get around the cap and trade easily, and but whereas the carbon tax is a tax. If you don't pay a tax, the government will know. If you go past your permit, the government's not going to test how much air is like. The government will have no way of knowing how much you emit if there's a cap and trade. Whereas if you don't pay the tax, they will know. So if you like buy a specific amount, well, you get what I'm saying, right?
Okay, do you have a question?
Yeah. He had a question, right?
No.
Okay,
Oh.
can we ask a
Yeah.
question?
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay, how does a small carbon tax make multi-billionaire fossil fuel companies switch to green energy?
Because they won't immediately switch. What will happen is people will stop going to fossil fuels and instead they will reduce their fossil fuel emissions and they will stop using fossil fuels, but instead they would start using renewable energy resources.
No, but they're already doing well right now, and then it's because of the carbon tax.
They're doing well right now, yeah, but we're having record droughts,
And
melting
storms,
Arctic ice,
yeah.
storms. Would you rather have really rich? Do you want to have really rich oil companies that are underwater?
Underwater?
Yeah, because
Okay, so yours are selling-
states
it's
can
not
be
selling-
swamped
It's not
by
selling.
water because of melting Arctic ice.
Okay, so I guess
There can
this
be
is like
floods.
2012 again.
Alright, okay, I have a question. Well, like, so for response to global warming, you say that animals cause global warming, but what does that have to do with anything?
Because, like, okay, animals are
When
just...
a cow passes gas is nothing compared to when
Yeah.
a car
No,
drives.
okay,
Animals barely make up any
yeah,
of the
they
global
do like more than half of the.
Well, it's over, so
Okay, at the end of the debate, the comp team has clearly won this debate. Instead of a carbon tax, we can use an alternative such as a cap and trade to solve the problems. The cap and trade limits the amount of carbon being used and benefits the environment. Cap and trade can also solve global warming. As I said before, it can it limits the amount of carbon being used, so it is better than a carbon tax, which just places a tax on carbon. It can also job loss is oh shoot. okay. So cap and trade, we can for oil dependence, we can control dictators when we buy oil for them. They'll eventually depend on us to buy oil for carbon from them, so we can actually control the dictators. And green economy, it won't stop carbon emissions. People won't immediately get a new car just because carbon is slightly bit expensive. We can also transition to green economy without carbon tax being used. Thank you.
Alright. In the end of the day, I genuinely believe the pro team wins this debate. I'll first outline my main voting issues, then disprove their responses, and finally explain why none of their contentions still stand. First, our main focuses are on global warming and oil dependence. So, for global warming, it is definitely happening. We need a carbon tax. In fact, James Powell proved this in a study. In response to that, they say that actually a carbon tax does not stop global warming. But it does, because we're using less fossil fuels. And they also say that the impact is far away. But there is evidence that is happening now of super heat waves, floods, and ice caps melting. And then they also say that animals are causing global warming, but really this doesn't matter because the companies have a much larger impact. All right, now to move on to oil dependence, the second voting issue. Using a carbon tax will have less fossil fuels, and also we will not anymore support hostile governments. And they say that oil sales are inevitable, they say that oil sales are inevitable, but still, using a carbon tax will help because we're using less fossil fuels. All right, now to respond to their contentions. For wealth gap. Wealth gap actually doesn't help hurt the poor. Wealth gap is actually is a necessity for flourishing economy, and we had evidence of that in the responses. For job loss actually leads to more jobs and economic growth, and also companies won't buy workers because they need them to run a business. Lastly, for alternatives, they say that carbon tax is actually better than cap and trade because the government can easily set the price too high or too low. Additionally, for cap and trade, the price fluctuates every day. This will not happen in carbon tax. For these reasons, we urge you to vote for the pro team.